Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. Give folks a chance to join. Good morning. Happy to see the chat's working. Good morning, everyone. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Kentucky Harm Reduction and Recovery Community of Practice webinar series presented by Voices of Hope and the University of Kentucky Harm Reduction Hub. My name is Brooke West. I am a person in recovery and the training and education manager at Voices of Hope in Lexington, Kentucky. The goal of a community of practice is to bring together a group to engage in training, share best practices, and network around a common interest. Today, the topic of our community of practice is Recovery High School's 101, where we'll learn the basics of the Recovery High School model, presented by Michael Durchslag, Director of P.E.A.S.E, P.E.A.S.E, Peers Enjoying a Sober Education, and Board Chair of the Association of Recovery Schools, Brandy Brink, founder and CEO of Beyond Brink and WEcovery, and Tiffany Hanson, Adolescent Program Manager with Beyond Brink and WEcovery. But before their presentation, we'll hear from Casey Bitchek, Community Research Associate, who is providing an update from the University of Kentucky Harm Reduction Hub. So first, just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you are a peer support specialist interested in continuing education credit for this webinar, you need to complete the survey that we will place in the chat toward the end of this session. And as most of you have already found, we have the chat feature on, and so you can participate during this webinar, give feedback, and ask questions. So now I'll introduce you to Casey Bitchek, a harm reductionist with over a decade of experience working in syringe service programs, advocacy organizations, and community-driven research studies. Casey has held direct service roles at syringe service programs in New York, and Louisville, Kentucky, and has provided training and technical assistance on working with people who use drugs and/or trade sex to harm reduction programs and health departments across the country. Casey came to harm reduction work through lived experience of substance use and a desire to keep herself and her community as safe as possible. As Community Research Associate at the Harm Reduction Hub, Casey will provide monthly updates on the Hub's syringe residue testing project on this webinar, as well as harm reduction education about emerging adulterants in the drug supply. Welcome, Casey. Good to see you again. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brooke. All right, give me just a second to share my screen here. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm very excited to give you a brief update on our October findings. So here's just a very quick agenda. It'll take about 10 minutes or so. For those who are unfamiliar, I'll give you a really quick overview of what the Harm Reduction Hub is. Then I'll talk through our October syringe testing results and notable contaminants that we found particularly in Fayette County this past month. All right, so what is the Harm Reduction Hub? The Hub is an initiative that brings together academic and community-based scientists, as well as harm reductionists, to provide insights into Kentucky's street drug supply, which we do by analyzing the residue in used syringes. We are a service first and foremost. So the Hub exists to serve people who use drugs and the programs that serve people who use drugs throughout Kentucky. Our goal is to keep people informed so that they can make the decisions that are safest for them if they are using substances. And two-way feedback loops are very critical to the Hub's success, both with our partner sites and with other community partners, including folks who sit on our steering committee, which is a 15-person committee made up of 51%, at least 51% of folks with lived or living experience of substance use. It's just really important to us that the Hub doesn't exist in a vacuum and that we aren't working alone. We want to make sure that our work is always relevant to the people that we're serving and we're meeting the community's needs. So we are always welcoming of feedback from community partners or just community organizations or folks who are using drugs in general. All right, and so with that, I will take you through our October testing results. So this past month, October, substances were present in 555 syringes that we tested from Jefferson, Fayette, and Perry counties. This was the first month that we tested a large batch of syringes from Jefferson County, and the first month that we were consistently testing from Perry County partner sites, or sorry, not Fayette, large batch of syringes from Fayette County and consistently testing from Perry County partner sites. Sorry about my misstep there. This month we saw increases significantly in cocaine. It was found in about 96% or 17 or 96 syringes or 17% of the syringes where substances were present. And you can see on this chart of the 10 most frequent substances, it was the ninth most frequent substance identified this month, which is a change from the past couple months where cocaine was not very prevalent in our testing results. And something interesting to note is that 65% of the syringes containing cocaine, or 62 syringes, were from partner sites in Fayette County. So just very interesting to note that the drug supply in Fayette County is looking a little different than the drug supply in Jefferson or Perry counties in terms of the amount of cocaine that we're seeing presently. And then we also saw an increase in xylazine this past month. It was present in 107 syringes, or 19% of the syringes that we tested in October. And again, that's from all partner sites versus just 8% or 49 syringes in September. And then just quickly to note, I didn't put it on the slide, but we did see a slight increase in BTMPS from 8% to 10%. We did also test more syringes this month than last month, or well, in October versus in September. So, and it is a pretty small increase, but I did just want to note that. And then alongside that increase in xylazine, we saw a decrease in medetomidine. It was in 90 or 16% of syringes in October versus 122 or 21% in September. And then, oh, I see that there's a raised hand. Oh, okay, sorry. So we saw a slight decrease in medetomidine and something interesting that Kelly from our lab noted is that she was seeing a lot of syringes with both medetomidine and xylazine in them this month. And then, and on that note, I should have said this at the top of this slide, but just to clarify for everyone, um, saying that more often than not, there are multiple substances in a syringe, and we don't, residue testing is limited. Or what we can know from residue testing is limited, so we can't know for sure whether these are substances people are intentionally using together or whether people are reusing syringes and using different substances or sharing syringes. But I do want to note that there are often multiple substances in the syringes that we're testing. And then, as has been true for the past couple months, meth and fentanyl were the substances most frequently found in the syringes tested. It flipped again. So in August, meth was the number one most frequently found substance, and fentanyl was number two. September, fentanyl was number one, meth was number two, and then um, this month or in October, 339 syringes or 61% contained meth and about 53% or 305 contained fentanyl. All right. And then just, I'm not going to talk too long about this, but I did just want to show a chart with the 6-month trends. You can see the increase in xylazine, medetomidine, and BTMPS over the past 6 months. So xylazine is that yellow line, medetomidine is that blue line, and BTMPS is green. And you can kind of see this month as xylazine rose again after dropping last month. Medetomidine is dropping. And then BTMPS has been pretty consistently on the rise. And then just another 6-month trend chart, fentanyl, xylazine, and meth. So you can see that these are 3 of the most common substances that we see, and we are seeing, fentanyl kind of holding steady, meth holding steady, and a rise in xylazine this month after a slight drop last month. All right, and then because this was the first month where we had a large batch of syringes that were tested from partner sites in Fayette County, I did just want to talk about the Fayette County results more in depth. Again, as I said earlier, something that was really interesting to note is that 78% of this, or sorry, not 78%. After methamphetamine, which was found in 78% of syringes, cocaine was the most commonly found substance in syringes tested from Fayette County. It was in about 72% of syringes. So again, just very interesting to note the difference in supply that we're seeing in Jefferson County versus Fayette County. And then in very small amounts, so in 1 or 2 syringes each, we identified xylazine, BTMPS, carfentanil, and medetomidine. And so I do want to highlight that that doesn't mean that these are new adulterants in Fayette County. This was the first large batch of syringes we tested. So these adulterants may have already been in Fayette County, but we did issue an alert to let people know that they'd been identified and give some harm reduction tips. And then just very quickly for folks who are unaware, xylazine is a veterinary tranquilizer that's associated with severe skin wounds that can rapidly become necrotic. BTMPS is a chemical used in the production of plastics to protect them from UV rays. It was found in 2 syringes. There's not a lot of information yet, or there haven't been a lot of studies done yet on the impacts of BTMPS in humans, but it has been associated with pretty severe health issues in animals. Carfentanil is a powerful fentanyl analog that isn't always detected by fentanyl test strips, and medetomidine is another veterinary tranquilizer that is similar in structure to xylazine, but it is not associated with it has not been associated with those severe skin wounds yet, but has been associated with extremely severe and rapid onset withdrawal symptoms that often require medical attention. So with that, I'm just going to take y'all through some harm reduction tips for these adulterants. As always, we recommend starting low and going slow, especially if you're using a new batch or you're buying from a new supplier. I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone this, but you can always use more after a few minutes if things feel right or if you are not feeling like you used enough, but you can't remove substances from your system. So we just recommend if you're unfamiliar with what you're taking, especially, to start with a smaller amount than you might normally. And then carry naloxone and know how to use it. Carfentanil is an opioid. BTMPS, medetomidine, and xylazine aren't, but they are most frequently found in fentanyl or mixed with other opioids. So it's important to know how to rescue breathe and to use naloxone if you see someone who is experiencing what looks like an opioid overdose, even if you're not sure what they used or you think they didn't use opioids. And then on that note, learn to perform rescue breaths. There's a graphic here from Hellbender Harm Reduction. But tilt the person's head back, make sure that there's nothing lodged in their throat. And then pinch their nose shut and give a breath every 5 seconds until they are breathing on their own. And this is really important because while they're not opioids, xylazine and medetomidine are both respiratory depressants. So overdoses involving those substances should respond to rescue breathing. And then seek medical attention if you're experiencing rapid heart beating, tremors, nausea, or unusually elevated anxiety. These are all symptoms of medetomidine withdrawal and often begin 3 to 4 hours after a person has last used. And seek medical attention if you have wounds that are getting larger after 3 days, are in sites other than the injection site, or if you're getting skin wounds despite not using via injection, or the wounds have a foul-smelling odor. These are all symptoms associated with those xylazine-related skin wounds and infections. And that's everything I have for you this month. Please feel free to scan the QR code and sign up for our alerts and newsletter. And also you can always email us at UK Harm Reduction or UK Harm Reduction Hub at uky.edu. All right, well, thank you all for having me and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Casey. And for any visitors from outside of Kentucky, like our presenters here today, Fayette County and Jefferson County house our two largest cities in Kentucky. So Jefferson County is Louisville and Fayette County is Lexington. So that's why that's part of the focus of the harm reduction hub.
Thank you
So
for clarifying
yeah.
that.
I was like, oh wait, maybe they don't know. Well, and if anyone has questions for Casey, feel free to put those in the chat. And if we can't answer them, we'll get them to Casey
Yeah.
or, email them
Just
at the email she shared.
Just so everyone knows, I do have to jump to another meeting, but I will respond to any questions via email, and there are other hub staff on the call who can also answer questions in the moment. So hope everyone enjoys the rest of the webinar and have a great afternoon or morning and then afternoon.
How about both? Yeah,
All
sure.
right. Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
Casey.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to now introduce Michael, Brandy, and Tiffany, who give us an introduction to Recovery High Schools. Michael Durchslag is the director of P.E.A.S.E Academy, Peers Enjoying a Sober Education, the longest running recovery high school in the United States. He began working for P.E.A.S.E in November 1995 as the social studies teacher. Michael became the school's director in January 2007. He is a licensed grade 7 through 12 social studies teacher and earned his Master's of Arts in Teaching from the University of St. Thomas in 2002. Michael also holds a BA in Religious Studies from Beloit College. His commitment to recovery schools goes beyond P.E.A.S.E Academy, as he also serves as a part of Minneapolis College's advisory board for their collegiate recovery community and program, founded the state's first alternative peer group, is an advisor on the Coalition of Recovery Investments, and is the chair of the Association of Recovery Schools and part of the ARS Executive Council. And now for Brandy. After working in project and property management for over 10 years and being a woman in recovery herself, Brandy Brink found one of the biggest barriers to long-term recovery was a safe and supportive living environment, in addition to having access to a continuum of care after her initial treatment. Brandy founded Beyond Brink in 2016, a nonprofit recovery community organization where she serves as the CEO. Beyond Brink has successfully opened 7 housing programs with 89 beds total, serving both men and women through pre and post, as well as LGBTQIA non-gender specific housing models. Brandy obtained certifications in peer recovery specialist services, peer recovery reciprocal, peer recovery supervisor, and is a certified trainer. Brandy founded Beyond Brink's RCA, WEcovery Academy. Brandy trains in domains including advocacy, cultural awareness, ethical responsibility, mentorship, and peer support. Tiffany Hanson is a dedicated community peer support specialist, reciprocal, and supervisor, as well as the program manager for the Adolescent program at Beyond Brink, WEcovery. Tiffany joined the team with Beyond Brink in 2022 with a passion for helping others navigate their recovery journey. Tiffany brings both professional expertise, and lived experience, having been in recovery for the past 11 years. She is committed to fostering a supportive and empowering environment for others. Currently, she serves youth in the surrounding public schools, as well as serving the students of Freedom School, a recovery high school in Mankato, not sure if I'm saying that correctly, Minnesota. Okay, turn it over to Michael. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you for everybody for being here. I am going to get our slides going, and as I do this, I just want to just thank everybody for being here. I should. All right, so I'm assuming everybody can see the slides when we're good to go, but just want to thank everybody for being here. This is Recovery High School 101, so I apologize in advance. You're going to really be hearing most from me, but also I'm going to encourage Tiffany and Brandy to jump in as they can. I feel it's an honor to be presenting with them. As in most recovery community organizations in Minnesota, if not all, do not serve an adolescent population. And I've always just really admired the work that Beyond Brink and Recovery does, because they just went ahead and did it and got questioned along the way. And Brandy just kind of said, well, who says we couldn't or I can't? And no one can. So they just did it. And they're providing amazing services to our youth. And I've always thought, when I was trained as a peer recovery specialist many years ago, so I would know what they are. When I opened up our alternative peer group here, And I always just kind of thought that RCOs and peer services are an amazing opportunity to be a hub for recovery services that include the adolescent. And when I think of tiered level of services in the educational world, I think it's really peer services that can go into traditional schools and provide a safe environment for youth to start talking about their experience with substance use. Um, so the objectives today are just basically kind of understanding who we are. There's a lot of slides in here, and I'm not going to go through each and every one of them in high detail. Everybody will have a copy of these, so I really kind of put as many slides in there to kind of provide you as much information as we thought you could use, and even though we're not going to go on it. But those are the objectives. Really kind of and looking at what recovery high schools can do. I'm a huge, I've been in recovery high schools for 30 years. I'm a huge cheerleader, for lack of a better word, as a high level of service that students need. And then also got about learning about how this Minnesota RCO just started effectively serving students and emerging adults, including recovery high schools. And just for the record, it's Mankato. So, um, oops, let's see.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So just a disclaimer, because some of this is like from our end, funding was for as part of this initiative was made possible for a grant through SAMHSA, and the views expressed both in the written conference materials and publications and by the speakers, moderators, do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does mention of trade names, commercial practice, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. And so just a little bit about the Association of Recovery Schools. We are the really the only national organization that supports the formation of recovery high schools, and as well as really just kind of adolescent recovery. It was founded in 2002 with the mission of supporting and inspiring recovery high schools for performance and hope. I really believe that every single geographic area should have a recovery high school accessible to youth, because those youth who are seeking recovery should never have to choose between their education and a school, and too often that happens. And so what ARS does is we deliver training and consultation for currently operating recovery high schools, emerging recovery high schools, and those who support them. We provide access to national and national networks, opportunities for recovery high schools. And for me, what I can say is that was amazing, because we're a very small niche school. There's probably about 47, 48 recovery high schools across the country. And to be able to work with other professionals across the country has been a lifesaver, because not everybody understands what we do or how we do things. We definitely advocate on the advancement of recovery high schools at the local, state, and federal levels. And so I'm really excited to be here today speaking to this group from Kentucky about what recovery high schools could possibly provide your youth. I always think that if sometimes we wait too long to start serving those who use substances, we know what happens if we don't make a meaningful intervention. They will need additional adult services, but if we can make a meaningful intervention when they're still developing adolescence, we can make a significant impact in the trajectory of this disease. Research academic and behavioral health outcomes in recovery high schools, because we are evidence-based, and we provide evidence-based practices, and we have an amazing accreditation process for our schools, both those schools that have been existing for quite a long time. It's an opportunity to really kind of hone in on improvement, but also for new emerging schools, it provides a framework for best practices to really kind of build their school, and between 3 and 5 years after operating, they can go through the accreditation process through Association of Recovery Schools. And here you can kind of see some of our, why, we do believe that each and every student seeking recovery deserves an access to an environment that supports healing, learning, and a foundation for lifelong health. And it, so nationally, we know that youth do need recovery high schools, and we can look at the high reoccurrence of use rates. We know that up to 70% of youth have a reoccurrence youth after substance use disorder treatment, and this really highlights the necessity for ongoing structural support beyond initial treatment. And so really recovery high schools initially were set up to support youth who are coming out of treatment, to provide a continuum of care, but more and more, because depending on the different landscapes in a location, population. Sometimes recovery high schools, including mine, P.E.A.S.E Academy, P.E.A.S.E Enjoying a Sober Education, we oftentimes serve as that initial engagement in recovery as well. And I can talk more about that at some point. That traditional schools often expose students to substance using peers and environments that can undermine the efforts to change behaviors. And the more we know about brain chemistry, we know it's not as simple as just saying no. I remember Nancy Reagan and her just say no. Yeah, everybody, as youth interact with those old friends or people, and it's not against them in any way, but their brains start firing down those pathways and they just kind of go with the flow, and it takes a really strong minded person to kind of veer off that. But sometimes recovery high schools are set up to provide that opportunity and space for them to develop those new pathways so they can reintegrate without as much risk. There really is a lack of adolescent prevention, intervention, and treatment services. When I go to events, there may be, I was at the big addiction and recovery conference in Minnesota, and there were 5 tables that were vendors who actually served adolescents out of hundreds. And so we know that adolescents have a lack of prevention. And sometimes I think that one of the things that go against that is because most youth get served by the schools, and a lot of money goes into the schools, and so the idea of providing even more services sometimes goes lacking. This is not to say that adults don't need services, because they definitely do, but there just really is a lack of meaningful programs for the young people of this country. And we know adolescent substance use, we know that an estimated 15% of adolescents aged 12 to 17 have had a substance use disorder before turning 18. So they need additional services. Here, as you can see, some different definitions of recovery, and I put those up there because most of the definitions that we have seen as a national organization really work with an adult population. And we know that there needs to be, that adolescents are different, even though we try to put the same models from the adults onto to young people who are still developing, but they are still developing. So new models and new definitions have to be had. And so Association Recovery Schools, after probably about 18 months of work, this is never an easy topic, came up with our own definition. We borrowed from SAMHSA. We think that the SAMHSA definition they came up with how many ever years ago was fantastic. And so we really borrowed from them, but really kind of thought about the young person. So recovery is a personal journey of healing and growth that helps young people build a healthy, fulfilling life. For adolescents whose brains are still developing, substance use can disrupt emotional, mental, and physical growth, making it harder to manage challenges and achieve future goals. Recovery involves creating stability, a consistent state of well-being supported by positive outcomes, healthy coping skills, and strong support systems. Taking a break from substances allows the brain to heal and supports these changes. Recovery for adolescents is about progress, connection, discovering new opportunities, and supportive environment. And what I can say is taking a break has really resonated with the youth that I get to serve. And we can talk about it, just provides you an opportunity to develop those really important skills. How do you make friends? How do you deal with grief and loss? How do you celebrate things? How do you deal with boredom? All those different things that we learn how to do as young people, and we kind of, without just taking a break from substance, allows us to develop those really healthy skills that we can take into our adult life. So recovery high schools are secondary schools. We are schools. We're not treatment centers. We're not like aftercare programs. We are schools, but we're just designed specifically for students who are in recovery from substance use disorder or dependency. I'm going to take, just before I go through this, one of the reasons why I really like the idea of peer services in the different levels of schools is because, I know that for recovery high schools really serve those students who are kind of in the stages of change of action, and they want to do some things and are looking to move towards an abstinence-focused recovery. But there's a lot of youth who haven't even contemplated it before. There are a lot of youth who, they're unsure about what they want to do. And so, I know that working with different schools, the idea of providing that safe space to discuss drugs and alcohol is difficult because, you know, they're like, oh, are you co-signing it? And I'm like, no, we're just trying to provide a safe space for them to talk about and set their own goals. And so I really see a real role for peer services in the traditional schools and then a tiered level of services. So if they have youth who are in these programs who are looking to be engaged in more an abstinence-based approach, that they have a place to go to. And I think recovery schools do that. So anyways, recovery high schools are secondary schools specifically designed to help students who are in recovery from substance use disorder. Educate students in recovery. Like I said, we're school first. Most of our students have co-occurring diagnoses. There's an amazing data collection and research called the Systematic Evaluation of Adolescent Recovery Services, SEERS, that's kind of run by a few different colleges and universities and supported by ARS, but they're really kind of putting together ideas like who are the students that we get to serve in recovery high schools. Meet state requirements for awarding a secondary high school diploma. We want our students to get that diploma and move forward. All students are working in recovery, a program of recovery as agreed upon by the school and the student. You know, so and depending on the landscape, there are schools that don't have the benefit of having an extensive adolescent treatment in their area. And so sometimes they're working with those students to help them move through those stages of change to get to where they want to be. And that is not to discredit what treatment does because it is of utmost importance. And I don't believe that recovery schools are a substitute for quality treatment for our youth. Recovery high schools provide a safe, supportive environment that make every effort to provide students recovery, including policies that preserve an alcohol and drug-free environment. You know, when I get to travel the country and go visit recovery high schools, and I love doing it because, you know, you get to see these incredibly bold youth who are just, you know, thriving in this new environment. But one of them is that you can just, it permeates that these are safe places that our students want to be at. You know, what our name for P.E.A.S.E Academy, Peers Enjoying a Sober Education. I wasn't here at the beginning, but the students named it P.E.A.S.E because it was the first place that they had felt at peace in a long, long time. And they wanted to incorporate the idea of being at peace into the name. And one of our original students went home one night and they came up with this acronym, and we've been Peers Enjoying Sober Education ever since. We do know how to spell in Minnesota. And it's really available to any student in recovery from substance misuse or co-occurring diagnosis who meet the state or district eligibility requirements for attendance. And so we really want to be open to all. For me, they don't have to complete a treatment center. They don't have to have 30 days before entering. You know, I have students who are working on their first day when they start here, but all of them are committed to working towards that goal of an abstinence-focused recovery. And I know I talk a lot, and I don't know why my slide is not moving. Let's try it this way. I have paused for some reason. Is it moving for anybody? I see Tiffany, no. Okay, why is that not going? I am going to stop my share or end. Oh shoot, how should I do this? Oh, there we go. It worked. So what are recovery high schools? A deeper dive. It just needed me to threaten it a little bit, and it got back in line. Please ask questions along the way. It just helps. What are recovery high schools? Recovery high schools are specifically designed for youth who are seeking freedom from substance misuse. I really like this term substance misuse. I'm not a big diagnoser. It's an adolescent. They're young people. They're adolescents. They're, you know, the substance use disorder is a diagnosis in the DSM-V5. It's an adult diagnostic tool that we're placing on students. For the students I get to serve, all I know is that they have misused substances and they've had negative consequences around it. That's what I know. That's what they know. All of that other stuff I can leave to the professionals. And I just know that they've misused substances. So I really like this idea of substance misuse, and they want to engage in a community of other youth who are actively choosing recovery. And this is important. You know, peer support is of utmost important, regardless of the age, but especially for young people who are they're looking to have fun. You know, they're looking to meet other, you know, youth who don't want to listen to old people like me, but they just want to, you know, they want to, you know, be bold and crazy out there. They want to go to dances, they want to drive around, they want to, stay up super late and, drink energy drinks and, all that stuff that makes a young person sometimes engage in, I'll just say it, risky sexual behaviors, not, I mean, with with each other. But do so because they know that when it gets messy, they have that support at the school to help them walk through, to make different choices that align with their own sense of beliefs and their own sets of morals and things. So we create an environment of safety for our recovery high school youth. We are absence focused, and and by embracing the foundational principles central to risk reduction in our school policies. Recovery schools center youth choice, power, and voice, and view success through a lens of individual and community health and intention.
Hey, Michael, we've
Uh,
got a question in the chat
Absolutely.
from another Michael,
Oh,
actually.
wonderful.
Any thoughts on the Icelandic model of community preventative programs of quote unquote Planet Youth? Sounds similar in some ways. Oh, my chat just jumped. So sorry. Okay, any thoughts on the Icelandic model of community preventative programs of Planet Youth? Sounds similar in some ways. Have any of you worked with that model in connection with recovery high schools?
I am going to plead ignorance because I do not know the Icelandic model. So the answer, I guess, for me, maybe no. I mean, I don't know if Tiffany or Brandy know more about it. Tiffany says she's shaking her head. Yeah, so I no. Um, If it is, I'm going to take a stab at this though. I got to visit Bergen, Norway, and I got to visit their juvenile detention center, which also included family living and a lot of support. So kind of these wraparound services, and may be wrong, but we do try to provide a lot of wraparound supports, including family supports, and provide this caring, loving environment that's non-punitive in our approach to student choices or behaviors. I have no idea if that's Icelandic or not. It's Northern European. So that's what. Sorry. Sorry, Michael.
Amanda did add a link in the chat for people who might be interested in learning more about
Perfect.
the Icelandic model.
I will definitely look at that when, when we get done,
Yeah,
because I am interested.
if I'll jump in, and I had not heard about it, so I did just look it up, but I do, Michael, agree that it does sound familiar. So it's really talking about changing the community and environment, so across the community approach, and I really do believe that's what recovery high schools are attempting to do, is just to create this environment that brings in like-minded. So I had not heard of that. I do love this. So thank you for pointing that out to me.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy. Um, so kind of keep key concepts. I kind of already messaged. Non-coercive, non-judgmental. I always say, I'm a relatively non-judgmental person. If it's not the right school for you, it's not the right school for you yet. Right. And that's my hope, and that someday it will be. Maybe next week it will be, maybe but I'm a relatively non-judgmental person. The youth we serve have different needs as those adults. I mean, they don't they don't have the same sense of mobility that adults might have. They can't change their housing that easily. They go to the same school, they live in the same place, they live in the same neighborhood, and so we have to provide a different level of support for them to make the changes that they want to make in their lives. Um, Recovery High School is most effective with youth who are moving out of the initial stages of change into action. Um, and recovery schools are simply not needed by youth who are experimenting with substances. Although, and I will say experimenting for me is that one of the most overused substance or most overused terms out there. I always think if the experiment is I don't know what a substance is or does to me, once I take that substance and I know what the substance does, the experiment is over. After that, it's use. And everybody has like this idea or judgment around what use means, but no one's putting a quantity on there. So that's kind of just my take with this idea of experimenting. But I also think that I've had students whose parents are making a meaningful intervention. That child also is like, you know what? I'm going down this path that I don't really like all that much, and it's just starting. So we can get them early on in that continuum of continuing of that early on in that continuum of use. However, they need to buy into it. They need to think like, yes, this is something I want. Because sometimes if a youth hasn't experienced too many consequences or people or negative impact, they might be like, it's not that big of a deal, and that kind of erodes some things. We do support multiple pathways of recovery. And I mean that in all sincerity. So it can be smart recovery. Because, one of the more traditional 12 steps recoveries, students, when I work with students, they can be part of a faith organization and they have a youth group. And if that youth group is supportive of them and what their choices are, absolutely that can be their support. So we really kind of whatever a youth wants to do outside of school to support them in their positive choices, we're all for it. And we really want our students to elevate their youth. And I kind of already went through this, that it's important to understand that we are not here to supplant or do away with treatment. So it's one thing to just hear me talk about success and why and how, but we do have measurements of success. Here's why, when people, like, if you go to the policymakers and superintendents, it's like why recovery high schools are so important. This was a study done by Dr. Andy Finch and Paul Moberg and Tanner. You can see the footnote at the end, but students who are in recovery high schools compared to those who are coming out of substance use treatment, they have higher graduation rates, significantly lower absenteeism. They're more likely to stay from using substances. They have fewer days using cannabis and other drugs. So we are successful and we are doing, and here's some more of those things that are more likely to be completely abstinent in 6 months, 58% versus 30. And it kind of goes in through the year, including cannabis use. We know that as cannabis becomes more and more accepted in our national culture, which it is, we also know that the impact it has on a fully developed adult is different than the impact it has on a still developing youth. And so we really need to be careful about how we look at cannabis, especially when it looks at young people. We've seen significantly greater declines in alcohol use, cannabis use, and other drug use. Students who attend recovery high schools reported significantly less overall absenteeism. I serve students from the whole metro area. It amazes me how the great distance students travel to get to our school. And when we have over 80% attendance rate with students who previously had truancies filed on them, it's pretty outstanding. It's pretty amazing, and I think that's really a testament at both the academics that we can provide. We're not a sober daycare, but it's also what they feel and the peers that they meet. And we have significantly lower odds of dropping out, which is important. There's some great work out there, and this is on a conservative estimate. Yes, it costs more to educate a young person in a recovery high school because the additional services are needed and the typically smaller nature of our schools. We don't have the economy of scale. However, we get this is really kind of Paul Moberg's conservative estimate of the present value of net benefits is about 32,000. Less days absence from jobs, less hospitalizations. They're just oftentimes more productive out there. So how do you start a recovery high school? Kind of developing a 3 to 5 strategic plan that includes a budget, reasonable, attainable, and reflects the realistic enrollment projections. Recovery schools are going to start small. They're not going to start at 100. They're not going to start at 50. They're going to start small. And I know that we have to be realistic. I once heard, I was in Austin, Texas at a conference, and this mom shared about where she had to be the first person to enroll her child at a recovery high school, because it's one thing to walk in an established school like P.E.A.S.E Academy where you can see the students, you can see the work that they're doing, and the halls are buzzing, and but it's just another to walk into a concept. So to start small and where a family needs to be, like, yep, we're going to take a chance on this new idea. I think it's important to have a board of directors or support people that reflects the community that you work in, and that have a variety of different skill sets. Work with community partners. That's one of my big things. P.E.A.S.E Academy is the longest running recovery high school. We've been operating for 36 years, I'll be 37 in January. The average lifespan of recovery high school is 9.5 at the last time we looked. Working with different community partners across the board, I think is really, really important. Plus, we can provide a lot more for our students for a lot less. Identify school leadership with proven experience, both in recovery and therapeutic. So it's important to get good staff. And being in a small school as compared to a larger school, good staff is really important. Let me see if this is just kind of more of that stuff it's all, sorry, it clicks like in different things. So I'm just getting it all up there as best as I can. These partnerships with treatment centers, local schools, juvenile JDC, different ethnic communities that might, just really getting out there, just kind of making sure that you have a variety of different referral sources is important. We promote the school in this program that represents who we serve, and we have regular evaluation to make sure that we're constantly improving. So these are some best practices that we have identified. Accreditation, I really think the accreditation manual, and I'm not just saying this because I was part of I'm part of ARS, but P.E.A.S.E Academy went through the accreditation process when we've been open for about 25 years. And it was an amazing opportunity for really to provide us an opportunity really to kind of do some self-reflection with a true guideline, but also have these experts from across the country come in. And I've been in part of other accreditations where it's kind of this gotcha moment. It's not what we do. It's really kind of a really professional coaching where like really come in and look at how we can improve the programming. And I really just appreciated the ARS accreditation framework. Those schools that are opening today, the opportunity to use that accreditation framework to build their school, I think is an amazing opportunity. I think restorative communities is incredibly important. It goes hand in hand with our idea that we're non-punitive. That doesn't mean there's not necessarily consequences, but how do we restore the community when something happens? And so we really build in specific training not only for the staff but also the students and their families, so they understand that we're a community that wants to keep people and want to keep it whole and healthy. That peer-to-peer support is an absolute a must, and it's a defining characteristic of recovery high school environment. It never ceases to amaze me the things that our youth share with each other in a high school setting. I can reflect upon my own high school experience in Cleveland, Ohio. I would have never shared the things that they share. That feeling of grief or that feeling of not belonging or the awkwardness or whatever it might be, they're just they're bold. They'll say it because they know that their lives depend on it. I really truly believe being trauma informed, trauma responsive. That they need to, we need to know that most of our students have high ACEs scores, and they're dealing with a lot of trauma before they get there. And then we have data collection and technical assistance. Oops. This is just a quick overview of our accreditation process. I'm just it's broken down into 4 different areas: school, organization, community, recovery, and education. And this is just, we do provide technical assistance, just some of the lessons learned from technical assistance.
Hey, Michael, we have another question in the chat.
Oh, wonderful.
Latavia asked, are there any models built in to promote post-secondary pathways to empower students to continue education beyond obtaining their diploma?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. And our accreditation model has a specific area talking about post-secondary planning. I can talk about P.E.A.S.E Academy specifically. 87% of our students at time of graduation have applied to, been accepted to, and are ready to enroll in some kind of program of their choice after high school. Could be a 4-year college or university. I love working with the collegiate recovery programs. If I can do a warm handoff to one of the collegiate recovery programs, we know that they're they're going to be successful not only in their recovery, but also their academics. And that's one of the things I think like an RCO can really play a part in, is to be part of that process, really kind of the hub in these different spokes like Recovery High School, APG to collegiate recovery. And so yes, we also really encourage our students to those who are ready, and some aren't, in their junior senior year, and get involved with our here in Minnesota's post-secondary enrollment option to expose them to college level classes at the college, so they feel more confident and ready to go in there. We also I know I'm kind of talking about four-year colleges and universities. The community college is an amazing place for our students to thrive in, and many of our students go to community college. Some of the community colleges have collegiate recovery programs as well. Not all of our students go to collegiate recovery programs. Many of our students choose the trades and how to help them get involved in the trades and the to become apprentices and get the necessary training. We bring in professionals from the community to share who are in recovery, to share their experience in that, and kind of connect them to possible mentors. And yeah, as I tell my students as they walk in, I have a lot of different friends in a lot of different areas, but I'm really looking for a plumber right now. There's just not enough of them. But yes, we do try to help them do that. And I'll even say the military. I had the opportunity to being invited to the White House celebration of recovery 2023, and I got to be a part of a small panel. And Chesterfield Recovery High School in Virginia brought a couple of their students to that panel because it was just too difficult for P.E.A.S.E Academy bring students across country. And a young man there talked about how his lifelong goal was to join the Marines. And in his substance use, he thought he had lost that dream. That would never, ever happen. And after he said he was going to be graduating from Chesterfield, and that he was ready to enlist in the Marines, and the crowd went crazy. And I can say that, for our students at P.E.A.S.E Academy, we've had students serve in every single branch of the military except for the Coast Guard. I just haven't had anyone interested in that. But so really, we do think about what happens after high school, because that's important. It does not end. It does not end at high school. So yeah, great question. And I know that when we go around all the recovery high schools across the country, we are focused on what happens afterwards. So best practices for serving emerging adults in recovery. I really believe in recovery high schools. I wouldn't be doing it for 30 years if I didn't. We provide an amazing education, maybe not to the same way that they might receive in a traditional school with advanced placements classes or robotics or marching band, but we make up for it in different ways. And even though we might not provide AP classes, we do get our students ready for that next step. Plus, we have amazing recovery supports that they probably would not get anywhere else. I really do believe in alternative peer groups, things that run by peer services. What are they doing after school? Are they having fun? It's hard to say, oh, just go to a meeting or, have some, good, recovery fun. But if we can create space for them to do that, they're gonna stick around a lot longer if they're going out and having fun. I can't speak highly enough of the collegiate recovery programs. Association of Recovery of Higher Education is an amazing organization that we work closely with. And then for me, what is the missing link in all of this? And this is really kind of where I'm going to turn it over, because I really think the missing link is really recovery community organizations and having them start working with our under 18 population. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandy and Tiffany, and just let me know when to advance the slides.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here today. As Michael shared earlier, in our state, Minnesota, we were the first organization to serve individuals as a recovery community organization, to serve youth or adolescents or under 18. And so when Michael reached out, any opportunity that I have to talk about what that looks like, what that looked like for us, and to get folks interested if you're not currently serving youth, if there's a way to do that. So I will talk about kind of that process for us. It is a little bit outside of, and I'll try to stick, today's topic is recovery high schools. But we do serve adolescents or emerging adults, if you will, outside of that structured environment. So I'm going to share my why. As my intro stated, I am a person in long-term recovery. I chose to go down this pathway of serving youth because I was a youth that was likely in need of services. So I went into a foster care system relatively young. My first inpatient treatment was at the age of 12. And when I returned to my community, I felt like no one used like me. No one had the struggles that I had. And it was because I wasn't communicating with others around me. So that likely is not true that that was the case, but it is how I felt. And so I felt very, very alone at a very young age. I was using with adults. I wasn't using with people my age. Once I tried substances for the first time, it was an escape from my reality. So, although there was some fun, if you will, in that process, once I realized that like I could sit in my own skin or not care about what was going on in my life, I was hooked, and that was it for me. And so, I see the lack of services that exist. I also never felt that I engaged with a person that looked like me, that was my age at that time. So for me, it was age at that time. I went to inpatient treatment. I was 12 years old and I was told to go to AA when I returned home. And so I looked very different than everyone in those meetings. And it was really hard for me personally to find that connection. And so um, why we chose to go through this pathway is because it was services that I felt like I needed at a point in my life. And so I always like to share that why. The how was very different. So this was a here's my why and how does that look? And so as I started to explore, I realized that there was no roadmap that existed. And so, being the true person in recovery, I decided to move forward and ask for forgiveness later. And so I was really loud about the line that I was walking. I spoke with our local and state representatives. I kept Department of Human Services in the loop. I would ask questions, but I didn't ask too many questions that I didn't want a no from. And so we really developed in our state that this is possible. Of course, our insurance company wanted us to add additional things, but we really just decided to show up. No one was. We did. We did apply for grant funding to make this possible. So just know that as much as I want to say go and do this good work, it is also not a sustainable service. And so it is something since 2018, we've had to get buy-in, and we had to get local buy-in. We had to get buy-in from our state to support this cause, if you will. And so that is something that like now is my full-time job. In a few minutes, I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany because she is the one that does so well with our adolescent population. And I just get to move paper and ask for money so that we can continue to show up and do those things. And so overcoming, and I'm just kind of going through this list. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. It's my understanding that we have peers primarily on the call today. So please feel free to drop any questions that you have for Tiffany and I during this. And so um, overcoming the perceived barriers. As I shared, the insurance, our insurance company, again, everyone was perhaps a little more nervous than I was to serve youth. And so having to get through those things and talk about them. In our state, we are a state that does reimburse Medicaid reimbursement for peer services. This is possible to youth. That is something that we also had to educate our insurance companies as well as our state. I think that there's just a perception that this service was for adults. There was nothing that spelled that out. So that took a lot of being very, very loud in all of the rooms that this was a possibility. Now, in our state, an adolescent has to get an assessment that is going to identify that they have a medical need for peer services to reimburse for Medicaid. And adolescents aren't really that interested in doing that, especially at some of the levels that we're serving youth. In a recovery high school, that feels and looks a lot easier. They have likely engaged in some sort of treatment services or have made a decision to seek or navigate recovery. Not all of the adolescents that we are serving look like that, right? So we're asked to go into middle schools. We have social services reaching out to us. We've had our county attorneys reach out to us when there's child protection involved. And we've identified that a 10, 11, 12-year-old is using substances. And so our interaction with these youth looks very different across the board. We've had clinics reach out to us. And so we do not, as a recovery community organizations, we honor all pathways of recovery. And we also realize that at, 12, 13 years old, you might not be identifying as a person with substance use disorder, or that you are interested in an abstinence-based recovery forever, or even for today. And so talking to an adolescent about getting an assessment that's going to identify that you have this disorder, that now we can serve it. So we've just, as an organization, continued to get really creative. Some of the funding that we currently get, and I don't know if this is an area of interest, but I do want to share all of the information just so that if you're considering serving youth, just know that it is possible. It takes a lot of footwork, but one of our biggest supporters and funders is actually United Way. And so we sought United Way funding pretty early on as an organization. And once we were established, so we're a relatively large organization in the state of Minnesota. And so once we realized we were sustainable in other areas, a lot of our focus towards grant funding or additional supports is for our youth programs. And so we have partnered, Michael shared that as well. One of our biggest reasons we're able to do the things that we're doing is from our community partnerships, and that included United Way. So we seek grant funding from them every year. We are able to show them what we do, who's reaching out to us, who's looking for that. We also work with other schools. There's local grants, the opioid settlement funds we've started to access for those youth services as well. So I look everywhere. I do not look for grants that are specific to recovery community organizations. I believe that this is a public health mission. And so for us, we really just look in all of the places. Normally when I share, which is why I'm heavy talking about funding, is a lot of folks usually reach out to us to talk about that braided funding that we utilize and how we move forward. I am going to pause and turn the last two questions over to Tiffany. I hope she shares her why as well with all of you. I just think it's important for all of you to know where I'm coming from. I'm just a person in recovery. All of the work, there's not special training that I went through to be able to do this. I'm so grateful for the training that I've received through this process. Some of that was through lived experience of serving adolescents and youth. And we flew the plane as we were duct taping it together at 1,700 miles, fast forward. Every youth looks absolutely different to us. And we really just wanted to create a space that individuals could talk. I'm now in my 40s. I don't look like an adolescent, but I can go into a room and express that When I was, 12 years old and I went into the foster care system and I was using cocaine at such a young age, what that looked like for me, and how alone I felt. And that starts to soften some of the younger folks that we work with into realizing that they're not completely alone in this journey. My goal for them, I want them to be safe. I want them to be happy. But that journey really looks however they define it. And Tiffany has done such a wonderful job since joining our team in really developing the services that we provide. So I'll turn it over to her and have her talk about what it looks like in the recovery high schools as well as the other schools that she works in. So thank you. Nope, you're still on mute.
Okay, there we go. Like I ended up with like a little writing utensil, and that was not what I wanted. Okay, my name is Tiffany Hanson. I am a woman in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that I get to continue to give back to the community that I stole from for so long. I am present in my children's lives and children's lives in our community. And I have been able to remain substance free for over 11 years now. I got into this because it's okay. My why is a little bit gritty, right? I was going through it at the time. I too was a person who used substances from an early age. I too started this to try and be the help, the change that I wish I would have had in my life at that young age. I was I was going through some struggles with my son at the time, and was realizing just how very little resources there were available for youth. Forgive the statement, but I landed on my knees and I said a prayer and asked God to show me what to do. And literally 5 minutes later, Brandy called me up and said, "Hey, I think I have this opportunity that would be amazing for you. Would you be interested in creating this youth program?" And I was like, "No, that sounds terrible." But then, after a few moments, it was like, wait, I literally just asked God to put in front of me what I needed. And so I called her back and said, "Okay, let's do it," even though I was terrified. And I can honestly say, after, several years doing this, this is work that I am meant to do. It is, painful at times. It is wonderful. And, the victories, we have to take them and run with them when we can. Now, for us, the biggest issue at the very beginning was really getting the schools in our area to let us in the door. There was some resilience that we experienced. Brandy had already put in a lot of footwork there. And thank goodness for us, we do have a recovery school here in our location who had a lot of faith in peer support services. And so they really helped advocate with us within that school system. And we now work with the Freedom School youth, which I have for, it feels like a lot longer than 3 years, Brandy. We've been doing this for a while, I feel like. But anyways, we serve youth in whichever way they really need, right? Like, so we show up within ethical, reasonings. In a recovery school, it looks a little bit different because, like Michael had expressed, these are people who are already identifying having an issue with substances and are committed to creating a different life for themselves. What that looks like for me, it could be interest development, right? Like, we just took away their solution to everything, and now we need to fill that space with something else. Whether that's like, hey, let's go rock hunting, or maybe we try different, crafting things, or or whatnot. We have a whole, I mean, I get really creative with it when it comes to like smash journaling and all sorts of different things, just a way to get them to become active and find purpose in something other than substance use. We also do, you know, emotional recognition. When I was a kid, I didn't understand my emotions. I just knew I felt them, and I felt them very strongly. And so like helping them put names to what those emotions might be or the underlying things that are going on. I utilize motivational interviewing constantly when I'm working with these kiddos, really to help them understand their perspective and where that perspective like comes from, and then how that drives their decision making. Because I remember at that age, like Michael had said earlier about, you know, impulse control isn't like their strong suit. A lot of times when I was younger, I didn't even know why I was doing the things I was doing. I just knew that I couldn't help myself. And I really didn't have an individual or anybody who believed in me enough to like give me the autonomy to come through that process on my own. It was mainly when I was, you know, growing up, it was like, hey, you're using, you need to go to AA, you need to go to NA. Those were the only options I had. And like Brandy had shared, I was a very young person who didn't really feel like I belonged. And there wasn't really a community of other youth that I was able to, you know, connect into. And so it was kind of an in and out and in and out and in and out of treatments and different recovery situations before I finally was able to feel comfortable in my own skin. My hope in doing this is to like meet these kiddos where they're at, give them the safe, judgment-free space to talk about what's going on in their life. I educate about current drug trends that are out there. So like the harm reduction thing that you guys had at the beginning with the your needle exchange information was fascinating to me, because I like to know what's out there and to be able to help, you know, convey that to the kiddos who I'm working with. I also believe in giving the youth that I work with the dignity of their own choice, which means, hey, you know, like, yep, I decided to go use drugs. I got caught, da da da, and I'm not leaving them, right? I'm staying, but I'm also gonna help walk through the consequences of the dignity of their choices with them. It shows up like, you know, I bring kiddos to appointments. Maybe they have a medical appointment that they need, and you know, mom and dad aren't really present. How I show up really differs from kiddo to kiddo. Some of the pitfalls of serving emerging adult, if I'm being 100% honest, some of the pitfalls is caring about these kids and feeling like the odds are stacked against them. And not really knowing how to navigate through that, because there just aren't resources to help get them elevated. That can kind of hurt my mom heart sometimes. But really knowing at least that they do have somebody who's going to be listening, and there no matter what, is what I bring to the table.
Hey,
The
Tiffany,
benefit, yes.
sorry to interrupt. Speaking of resources, we have a question in the chat, and I don't know if Brandy would also want to weigh in on this as well. But the question says, I work with clients that are struggling with children that have problems with substance misuse, but also legal issues as well. How can I help them? And can they reach out to you for help?
So yeah, I did see the question. I was hoping to circle back when Tiffany wrapped up, but so what I will say is our goal showing up here today was really to help recovery coaches. I don't know if you guys use the term recovery coach or peer recovery specialist in your state, into serving emerging adults and adolescents. So although we will never turn, we do not turn folks away that reach out to us in any capacity. So if we had a family or a youth or an adolescent that reached out to our office, we would set up virtual services. We're going to show up alongside of them But a lot of the work that we would then do with that individual specifically is how can we reach into your community? And so we really do believe that that support should rise out of a community itself. We do know, and I know that Chris, I apologize if your next response is there is absolutely no support. We do also experience that and have to navigate that as well. And so as much as I want to say, absolutely have them call us. One thing that I would, ask everyone within this is to familiarize yourself with the resources that are in your area, even if it's one, right? If there is one place that does it, or is there folks within the recovery community who are willing if there is no other option? But I will always advocate for peer services. We will always help any organization that reaches out to us on how this looks for their organization to serve adolescents. But again, just know, I absolutely know that the resources could be scarce. What I would say is what I would do if a social worker reached out to me or a treatment provider is I would encourage engagement in peer services. We've grown throughout our entire state because there was a lack of services, but I know that I can't serve northern Minnesota very, very well because I don't live in that community. I'm not familiar with what meetings might have younger people there. So we do go into these communities. We will start youth all recovery meetings. We will work with other recovery community organizations on how to serve youth, which today they do. We do have other organizations. They don't say it out loud, but I know that they'll take a referral from me. And so that's what I would say, Carissa, is what I would encourage is reaching out to recovery community organizations as close as you can get. And sometimes that might be an hour to 2 hours away. We will always get on a phone call. Most adolescents don't want to sit in a Zoom with us or on a phone call anyways. So we might shoot them a text. We might communicate with them that way, and you'll be surprised at how much engagement they actually feel. And then they might be willing to meet up with you and hang out. And pizza is great, so they will go for that 100%. And so that's what I would say. It looks like a lot of other folks are dropping some resources in there. But again, just know if someone reached out to us, we would absolutely show up. We would also likely, the next step behind the scenes would be finding the closest recovery community organization and seeing if they would be willing to help serve someone under the age of 18. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tiffany.
Oh, I don't even know what happened. So
Tiffany
I'm
froze
done.
during that time, and welcome
I'm
back.
so sorry.
Yep,
Glad
I
you found
saw
your way
that.
back.
All of a
Nope,
sudden it
you're
was
all
like,
good.
excuse me, Tiffany, and then poof. So I don't know how to pick up, but I love what I do.
Yeah, benefits and joys of serving youth is where you're at, I think.
Oh, the benefits and joys, for instance, I have a youth that I started working the very first year that we were doing this, at a local school. It's a private school, or not private, sorry, public school, not a recovery school. But I get updates from her, every couple months. She was really struggling, and through like working together, we've got her into college. She's doing very well. Like, getting to see people thrive is amazing. Also, I've learned quite a lot about how showing up for youth can look, and how it's most beneficial, which is helped me at home with my children as well. So yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you, Tiffany, Brandy, and Chris. I know that you've been putting the rural communities. I think are something that all of us in the recovery community are trying to figure out best practices, how to make sure that everybody, regardless of geographic location, has access to recovery support services. So that is a kind of, I think, an ongoing issue for just everybody.
And I will say we're considered greater Minnesota rural communities. We serve outside of our larger cities primarily. So our organization has targeted those rural, and so we do have staff that are driving sometimes for an hour to 2 hours to meet with a youth that might want to talk for 15 minutes. And so we again, that's why I like to talk about the grant funding and reaching in as much as you can to your local and state to provide those supports. But we have seen incredible engagement specific to peer services.
Yeah. And, I know that I frequently take phone calls or emails from people from all over the state and even country. And it's just like frequently I don't know the answer. And so I reach out to my connections, and Brandy, a guy by name Randy, it's just like, hey, I have this call. They live in this rural area. Is there anything? And because they're a little more connected in that field than I am. And we also have a rural there's a rural recovery high school in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, which means nothing to anybody in this call, but it's a pretty rural area, and they make it work. And and actually there's going to be one opening up in northern Maine, and I think during the next year, and they have an incredible model that we've kind of provided. Roger, who I believe is on this call, Roger Oser, provided a lot of assistance with. It's just like, and so we're really hopeful that as we kind of move into more of these other areas, that some of these models that are being tried and that can be used in other areas as well. So this is kind of a poorly created graph that I did on it. It's okay, but the ratios are a little bit off. But this is really kind of how I see things. Is that I really see the recovery community organizations as being that hub that provides a family support, provides community integration. You see recovery high schools and the alternative peer groups, or that peers-led after school programs that are meaningful, and collegiate recovery programs, that we really see a kind of the recovery community organization as a real is set up to serve as this kind of continued hub. As we recovery high schools, I can't remember. I mean, here's just some quotes, or us quote, I should say, and you can kind of see the picture of the picture on the left of the students kind of at the tables. That was at a larger city event where they were kind of doing advocacy work, and of course, prom. We try to make sure that we provide the students those spaces and opportunities that any other students should have. And they have an absolute blast of prom, and this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. It's about getting the students to that goal, which many of them never thought they'd ever see. Right, many of them don't think they're going to see the age of 18, and now to have a cap and gown and graduate and have goals and what they're going to do afterwards. Is amazing, and it's not just the students who are are feeling it, but it's their parents, there's their grandparents, it's their brothers and sisters. It's the best family friends. So I know where it's 8:10:22, so that really is the end. Let's see if I can figure out how to. We'll just stop share. We'll figure it out from there. All right. I know that we have time for questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, Brandy, and Tiffany, for being here today. Those who are attending who are interested in a continuing education certificate for peer support specialist, the link is in the chat. Brandy, Tiffany, did you have any final thoughts?
Happy to answer any questions. Both of us dropped our contact information in the chat. But no, thank you so much. And if you're thinking about serving youth, please do. And we're happy to help and help navigate how that may look. Also, as Michael shared, if there is not a recovery high school in your area, he really did provide great outlines of what that looks like to start. And so we've seen incredible benefits of both of these services. And so us three are absolutely here to help navigate if you're considering that work.
Great. And we will be adding the recording of this webinar to our website. I've put the archive link in the chat as well. I also want to thank the co-sponsor of today's webinar, iChampion Health at the University of Kentucky. Big thank you to the Association of Recovery Schools. Beyond Brink and WEcovery, you guys are doing such important work, and it's been such a pleasure to have you at the webinar today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.